Good morning, Illini. Welcome back to another Healthy Illini podcast. I'm Matt Schrock, as always, and this is actually part 2 for our episode called Finding Your Voice. You should check out part 1 if you have not listened to it yet. It's fantastic, talking a lot about finding your own personal voice and personal journey and things like that. But we're going to jump back in with our guests and continue on this and talk a little bit more about finding your voice and how that manifests here on campus. I'm again joined by guests that are affiliated with Beckwith Residential Support Services. If you go back to listen to the first episode, you can hear what Beckwith is. But I'm joined again by Paige Lewis, Associate Director, Katie Hoyer, Visiting Disability Advisor, and Maddie Thomas, an intern. Michael had to leave. Michael Van Wagner was here in the first episode. It was great having him on, but he had to leave for a class, and so we lost him for this recording. But I'm still joined by the other three. Guys, thanks again for being willing to do this.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us here.
And we talked a lot last time about finding your voice and that personal journey and kind of what it means to come to a university and you're moving out of what you've always known and moving out of the structure that you're under. And so a lot of times, like you said, Paige, it's a very protected structure in a lot of ways because of the state of our world. Parents, and I know I'm a parent myself and I feel that, are very conscious of threats to our kids a lot, and so we try and protect that and try and safeguard that for good and bad. But then they come to college and all those things are not there anymore, and they're kind of on their own and able to step into who they want to be and find who they want to be. And so after you found that voice and found out who you think you want to be and you want to step into it, the next thing that's really important, you all mentioned in your prep work, was self-advocating. And the importance of that. So let's just start there. What do you mean by self-advocating? What does that even look like?
To me, self-advocating means just speaking up for what you think is best for you and not stopping until you get it.
I would agree. Those are all really important tenets of that. I believe, I think in general, when people hear the word advocacy or doing something for self, you're obviously focusing on what you need, which is wonderful and a great skill to develop. But I think a lot of times when people hear advocacy, they think of what big ways must I advocate? What big things do I have to do to make these big changes? And the biggest thing that I like to drive home when working with students, or just reminding myself, ways in which I advocate every day, is, it can be even the small things that I want to occur in my life. If you've done not as well as you hope on an exam, or if you even are with your boyfriend or girlfriend and want or significant other, I should say, and want something, different for dinner than they want. Advocate for yourself and explain why you're feeling like eating something different, and it's through making those little changes that we learn what advocacy really means for us. Because as we've been saying all throughout today, it's a very individualized process based on our own experiences. So there's no right or wrong way to self-advocate. It's simply speaking out for something that, bubbles up inside of you, that you have the fire for, that you believe is important, and you can't sit on it anymore.
And I think it's, again, self-advocacy is really that element of finding your voice. And so I don't think there's a right or wrong way. And so often we have students, or ourselves, we'll speak up because we think that we're justified. We might learn information later and realize, oops, maybe I shouldn't have been out, so outspoken on that. Live and learn. But nowadays, self-advocacy, people can do it social media. And, once it's out there, it's you can't pull it back. And so navigating what it is to find your voice is much more challenging because, back when I was, in college, if I would, misspeak or what have you, not too many people would have heard it. But now, if I were to put on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, what I'm frustrated about, it's out there and I can't pull it back. And that's a difficult thing for people to learn. And oftentimes self-advocacy is what we've been exposed to, those, our morals and ethics growing up. And social media totally changes those rules.
I've said so many times, I'm so grateful that that all that came along a little, slightly after I was in college. That I look back at who I was at a college age. I'm like, man, he was an idiot. I'm really glad that he didn't have anybody listening to him back then. But even scaling it back to even a more basic level, self-advocating really comes down to simply taking initiative for yourself and finding empowerment for yourself. And that's really where it starts. And there's a lot of students that don't feel that they are worth the time of doing that my voice is not even worth sharing because so-and-so has more experience, or so-and-so is more popular, or they have a they're better spoken, things like that. And that's really not what it's about. It's about taking that initiative of yourself in order to further whatever your needs are or where you're at. Why is that so important on a college campus, especially coming in as a freshman? You're changing, you come in because there's lots of resources here, but if you don't self-advocate, what is the advantage of doing that as a freshman, even when it's kind of scary? I mean, what does that path help you with?
I think it helps you learn how to be independent, how to stand on your own 2 feet, and just how to, get what you want.
It helps you to grow. If you're starting as a freshman, you're not going to be, nobody's perfect ever at anything. We're all, as part of the human experience, is growing and developing in every aspect of our life. But as a freshman, you're coming to campus. You have so many things, I should say, going on around you. You have so many influences, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, whatever the case may be. And so through trying to advocate, self-advocate, it's by the time you get to your senior year, you learn from your mistakes of like, oh, that's not how, if I wanted this end result, right? Because when we think of advocacy, we're thinking about where am I now and where do I want to be are the two things we need to, or kind of the two tenets we look at, and then how do we get there? And that self-advocacy piece is that middle piece, right? Through advocating, through using our voice, we get to where we want to go. And by the time you're a freshman, you might have very little idea of how you want to do that because you haven't come into your own yet. By the time you're a senior, grad student, professional on campus, whatever it may be, you've had those lived life experiences like Paige was mentioning earlier, that you're able to say, okay, this is why I go this way with my voice, or this is why I hold back at certain things. What's most advantageous for me to get what I need to get.
And Mike had mentioned before about who am I, and by speaking up, we help figure out who we are and explore ourselves that we didn't even know exist. I mean, so many people, by just speaking out, realize that they have some leadership qualities and they like it. Not necessarily the upfront, like I want to be president of the United States leadership, but realizing that leadership has several different levels to it. And so it gives them that confidence in, again, exploring to make them want to try to be vulnerable in other types of situations. Hopefully they'll have a similar outcome.
One basic difference between high school and college is just the layout. Very few have a high school campus that is laid out like our campus here, where you have different buildings, you have different places for advisors and things like that, and different organizations meet in different areas. If you're all talking about self-advocating and being proactive, but what are some practical ways that a student, especially a freshman coming in who's not experienced with a college setting, what are some practical ways to take those first steps and to advocate and to find those areas that you can use your voice?
I think definitely reaching out to your professors, your advisor, if you're a DRES student, your access specialist, or even just anyone really at DRES. And I also feel like reaching out to your family or your friends, people you trust, and just voicing like your concerns and seeking out reassurance is a great way to help you to find your voice and learn how to self-advocate.
Student service, everybody knows, especially with freshmen, that that first week is the prime opportunity to explore campus. And so that's why welcome week activities. So for freshman transfer students, it's really exploring all the opportunities that are out there. Quad Day is a fantastic opportunity, overwhelming by far, but can be well worth seeing all the different registered student organizations and other things on campus. Attending the activities advertised in the residence halls or the flyers that are or emails sent out by various departments of, hey, this is what's going on that's in your major. If you're identify, various social identities, looking to see what might be available through one of the cultural centers or there, just to even find that place that you feel comfortable. That is how college success, I think, happens, is that engagement and feeling welcome. Because if we always feel not comfortable, we're not going to put ourselves out there.
I would agree with that, with the caveat that sometimes we have to push ourselves, right? So when going and looking for resources, like Maddie and Paige both touched on, Maddie was saying that Paige was saying you need to be comfortable, and Maddie was saying to touch on to reach out to people you're close to, to put yourself in. For example, with freshmen, you all have to live in the dorms, right? The residence halls. So you're having to live in the residence halls. Resident advisors are chosen by housing staff to be wonderful resources for people because for the newer students, because they've been around campus. They know how to deal with you all as freshmen coming in who aren't familiar with resources, who might be feeling homesickness, whatever the case may be, and they're trained on what those resources are and what signs and things to look out for to provide you and direct you in the right way. So I always say to students, as long as when you're starting out, of course, your social circles and your connections to what's out there will grow. But I always like to say to my students, as long as you have one, or even internally among staff, we discuss, as long as students have one person that they can feel like, okay, this is my safe person. I can go to them when I have these questions. When I don't know what resources are out there, then it doesn't feel as overwhelming anymore, right? Because you know you have somebody in your corner.
And again, as you've all said, that journey takes time. First week of freshman year is great because you get exposed to so many opportunities, but it's so overwhelming you don't remember half of them. You don't have to have it figured out that first week. Just be proactive. Try. Go out and find out. I liken it to my youngest brother transferred here as a junior in engineering, and I helped him through some of the process during that time. And I remember he came back one day. He was supposed to decide what his specialty was going to be, what his focus was going to be. And he came back and goes, I haven't even heard of half of these. He's like, I didn't even know these existed. And that's what college is. You come in and there's so much that you don't even know exists. And you might find something there that is, hey, this is where I fit. And that's where you find your voice. And so it's that journey. It's that process that you can use.
And I think playing off of that is eyes wide open. We need to be open to these opportunities because everybody coming to school here has academically excelled. They're here for a reason. Well, now you're in with everybody who's just like you, and so how that's going to shake down in terms of your grades and stuff is different. And that, that academic success is often what helps make students struggle, because if they're not doing as well as they're used to, then they're starting to question, and they're not reaching out and having their voice and asking for help or saying what's going on. Learning strategies, study strategies, it's all different than what they know in high school. Time management, organizational skills, not enough time and effort is spent preparing prior to high school. And the assumption is, I'm an adult now, I should have this, and metamorphosis happens, right? And these skills. No, we have to reach out and feel comfortable of asking for help and figuring out and being present. So eyes wide open, I think, is huge with self-advocacy.
And we've all heard, this is important for this discussion and for every discussion we do in Healthy Illini. We've all heard the stories of, in high school, you're told you need to prepare for college. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a tough place, and you're on your own and all this, which there's some truth to that. But the thing that nobody says is there's a lot of people on this campus who want to help you. There's a lot of people on this campus who want to help you succeed. This is not we'll throw you in the deep end and see who drowns and save the rest of them. This is, we all of us in this room are here because we care about students, because we care about individuals, because we care about experiences. And so if you are listening and you find yourself, I don't have these things, or I haven't found my voice, I don't even know where to begin, I don't know where to start, I don't know who cares, we care. Reach out to McKinley, reach out to Drez, reach out to your advisors. People here on campus want to help you succeed, and we want to be resources for you. So please reach out for that if you're looking for your own voice. Now, the last thing I kind of want to talk about is kind of the next stage, the next step. Someone's come on campus, they found their own voice, they've found they can self-advocate, they've found their ability. How do you use that then to advocate for others also? And this is kind of really important for a lot of students you work with in Drez, a lot of students with disability, in that in the beginning, in your prep work page, you mentioned that it can be even more difficult for students with disability to navigate some of that, because they really have to self-advocate right away with whatever it may be, with access, with special accommodations, things like that. How does Drez advocate for others, and how can students also advocate for others if they've gone through the experience already and they found their voice in those areas?
Well, I think I'd be remiss as a licensed social worker if I did not say that I think the best way the first step, I should say, to advocate for others is to actually stop and listen. Stop and listen to what others are saying. I think all too often, whether you're staff, whether you're a student, whether you're a peer, whether you're a personal assistant, whatever the case may be, I think all too often it's easy for us to jump into what we see as the problem, where we see the advocacy to be needed, where that might not be the direction the student wants to take at all. And as much as what finding your own voice is making your own mistakes so you can learn from them, or also so you can grow. So for me, that's kind of the first step of helping individuals to advocate, is to stop and say, okay, what are you seeing as the issue at hand, and how you might not know how to get there, you might not have the resources, you might not know of the resources yet, but we always say at Beckwith, you don't know what you don't know, but I like to add in, you don't know what you don't know, but you do know you don't know something. So there's something there that you're struggling with. So being open, and then on the receiving end of that, being willing to listen to what that is, I think is key to advocating for others, because otherwise you're just advocating for yourself and what you think the need is.
So at Drez, students access specialists who are there to be the liaison for students receiving those academic supports that they need to normalize the playing field, really, are there to help the student learn how to have their voice. So they're, access specialists, similar to academic advisors, professors, really, it's helping the student to speak for themselves. They don't want to have the student come say, I'm having a problem with this professor. The access specialist isn't going to call that professor, email him, and solve the problem. They're going to sit and work with a student to try and figure out what the problem is and help them construct the most effective way to address that problem. And I think that's the misnomer, is that the problem is going to be solved for them. And so often students are still giving their voice up because that's what they're used to doing prior to here. So that's another tough lesson to learn.
Yeah, there's a balance, kind of, and you going back to what you said about social media page, is kind of learn that there as well. That when you first get into social media, you find, hey, I can use my voice. I got my voice, and then it becomes all about me. And you have to find that balance of using my voice, but also listening to others and finding where that voice fits into the fabric of everybody, because we're all in this together, kind of thing. And that's really, I love what Drez does in supporting Like you said, they don't fix the problem, but they support and help a student find a way to have their voice to address a problem.
There's times when everybody will take a more forefront in terms of addressing a problem, kind of depending upon where the student's at and how far it's accelerated. But again, the intent is not talking for the student, it's helping the student to advocate for themselves. And so sometimes it's just having that extra person in the room to give them the confidence to be able to speak and potentially interpret or reiterate what they're trying to say if they aren't saying it quite as clear as what they know the student's trying to say.
Another one of my favorite things to say to my students, I got a lot of them, is the only way to have confidence in your ability to do something is to build it. And so I think that is part of what advocacy is and learning advocacy. It's like Paige just mentioned, having that support in the room so you know you're not alone. You know you can, as we say, fail with a safety net, but it's on you. And that's not necessarily on the student when they first get here, because it's habitual, right, to have others, especially if you have a disability, to have a parent or a teacher or someone else take your voice. And so we understand how stressing and overwhelming it can be to just throw you in there and be like you were saying earlier, Matt, about finding the opportunity to do that. We're not going to have we're not just going to throw you in the deep end and, trial by fire. We're going to try to walk you through the skill set needed, or, help you to build that confidence over time, because it takes time and it's not one thing that's going to give you your voice if you do one thing. Working together to build that.
And the Beckwith, our mantra at Beckwith is making important choices, leading empowered lives. Sometimes that important choice is to ask for help or to recognize that we don't know something, and to, by admitting that to ourselves is huge. And so it can be a very small thing. It doesn't have to be grandiose, and oftentimes we think we have to have these huge expressions to say that we're self-advocating. It can be just the little things.
It comes back to something I like to say on the podcast a lot, is that, with Healthy Illini, or at McKinley, we're not trying to do things for you. We're just trying to come alongside and walk alongside somebody and give that support and give that confidence as well. And if somebody feels like their voice is not supported, that's what we want to do. It's not speak for them, not stand in the background in the shadows, but stand beside them and say, hey, you got this, as they go through it. And that's a lot of what I'm hearing from you guys on this as well. But unfortunately, that's all our time. I do really want to say thank you, Katie, Paige, Maddie. Thank you so much for being here, a part of this. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your voices.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Finding your voice at college or finding your voice in general is such an important part of who we are, and it's such a vital part of finding the path that we want to walk and find the things in life that we desire. And if you're listening and you're not sure about how to start on that process, you have a question, you have a comment, you want to give some feedback, please reach out to us. There's resources listed in our bio, whether it be McKinley, Healthy Illini, or Dres or Beckwith, any of those. Reach out. Again, we are here to help you. We are here to listen. We are here to engage and to have that conversation and see what we can do to help you find the path to be the best that you can possibly be. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey, no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we are here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.